Okay, so you know how you sent us those excerpts from that podcast series on improving English speaking skills by yourself? Well, we are going to take a deep dive into that just for you.
Yeah, the stuff in part 4.
Right, part 4, exactly.
Specifically on how to really get the most out of practicing speaking English when you're all alone,
By yourself. Yeah,
which can be tough.
yeah.
But this podcast, this series, it actually builds on some of the stuff you might already be familiar with, like shadowing.
And self-recording.
Exactly. Like those are kind of the foundational techniques.
The basics. Yeah.
But then it takes it a step further and says, okay, how can we make this solo practice even more interactive?
And how do we get you to a point where you can actually really start to see some like real progress where you're like, wow, I'm actually way more fluent now and I'm so much more confident just from practicing by myself.
And that's really our mission today.
To extract the gold.
Yeah.
The absolute best techniques from this podcast series so that you listening can immediately start implementing these and actually practicing speaking English effectively when you're on your own.
Without a partner.
Yeah, because that's often the biggest hurdle, right? You don't always have a language partner.
Absolutely.
But what this podcast argues is you don't always need one.
And they have a really interesting technique for this that they call and response.
I love the name.
But very descriptive.
It is. And I think when you first hear it, you might think like, oh, that sounds kind of weird.
Talking to yourself.
Yeah. Am I just going to be like having a conversation with myself?
Right.
But the underlying principle is actually quite smart.
It really is.
Because you're essentially just imagining a conversation.
Right. You're coming up with a question.
Like,
hi, how was your weekend?
Exactly. And then you immediately in your head switch roles and you become the other person.
Yeah, answer it.
And they give this great example in the podcast, like,
oh, it was great. I went hiking. What about you?
Nice. I stayed home and read a book I've been meaning to get to for like months.
Exactly.
It's almost like you're acting, but you're actually training your brain to...
I think this ties back to the bigger picture of language acquisition.
Yeah.
Because you're actually training your brain to predict what someone might say next.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Which is so important for, real-time communication.
Yeah.
And by going back and forth between these two roles, you're practicing both initiating a conversation
and responding.
And you're flexing different vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
Different grammar points in each turn.
I love that. And the cool thing is you can use this in practically any everyday scenario.
Yeah, ordering food, talking about the weather,
Making plans.
That's like a mental sparring match.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes I feel like when I'm doing this, I have trouble coming up with responses that sound natural.
Right.
Like it feels a little artificial. Do you have any tips?
I think it helps to really picture who you're talking to, like visualize them. And kind of anticipate based on maybe their personality or just the context of the situation, what they're likely to say.
Okay.
And I would say also don't worry too much about being perfect at this stage.
Yeah.
It's more about just getting the flow of the conversation down.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the more natural it will become.
Yeah, it's like anything practice makes perfect, right?
And then the podcast takes us a step further and says, okay, what happens when you get really good at those basic back and forths?
Yeah, they say it's time to up the ante.
Yes, it's time to challenge yourself with what they call advanced prompts.
Yeah.
And what's so cool about these is that they go beyond just simple information exchange.
Like a basic how are you?
Right.
What's the weather like?
Exactly.
Like they actually require you to think critically in English.
Exactly.
And they give 2 great examples in the podcast.
Like explain how AI is changing the way we work.
Right. Or if you could change one law in your country, what would it be and why?
Those are really good ones.
Like those are big questions.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to think about how tackling prompts like that actually helps rewire our thinking in English.
Yeah. Beyond just the vocabulary, what does it do to our brains?
I think when you have to grapple with something that complex, you're really training yourself to think in English at a higher cognitive level.
Okay.
You have to structure your arguments, you have to provide explanations, you have to, support your opinions, and all of that has to be done using English vocabulary and grammar.
Yeah.
So you're actually strengthening those neural pathways that connect your thoughts to English words.
So you're basically becoming more comfortable with expressing complex thoughts in English.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
And they even recommend setting a timer like 3 to 5 minutes.
The time pressure is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just speaking continuously on the topic.
Yeah. And they even say it's okay to pause.
Yeah.
But the important thing is to keep going.
Yeah. It's like building that stamina.
Building that stamina.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's important because, in a real conversation, you don't always have unlimited time to, perfectly formulate your thoughts.
Yeah, you got to keep going.
So by pushing through those moments where maybe you're stumbling over your words, you actually build resilience and confidence in your ability to communicate.
Even when you don't know what to say next.
Exactly.
I think that's huge. I mean, how about you? Have you ever tried that, like the timed speaking?
I have. It is a little daunting at first.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really effective.
It's like a workout.
It is. It's a workout for your brain,
Yeah.
your English-speaking brain.
I love that. Okay, so the next technique they talk about in this podcast is a little bit different.
It involves looking in the mirror.
Yes. Mirror work.
Yeah, and I know that might sound
a little weird.
a little strange to some people, but it's actually quite clever.
There's actually a good reason for it.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that when you're speaking to yourself in the mirror, you become so much more aware of like your physical presence.
How you look.
Yeah, your facial expressions. Are you moving your mouth enough? Like, what's your posture? Like,
Right.
all of that.
All of that.
And that can actually be a huge confidence booster
Okay.
because when you see yourself speaking clearly and engagingly, it kind of reinforces this positive self-image.
It's like visual positive reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, I look good doing this. I
Yeah.
sound good.
And they also talk about how you can use this for pronunciation specifically.
Yes.
Like they say, watch yourself closely as you're pronouncing words that you find challenging.
Yeah, like vocabulary.
Phenomenon, yeah.
Those are always tricky for me.
Right. And what this does is it helps you build what we call muscle memory.
Yeah.
So your mouth and your tongue actually learn the physical movements required to produce those sounds.
Just through repetition.
Exactly. And have you ever noticed how different English sounds require very specific mouth shapes?
Oh, yeah.
Like think about the A sounds versus like an S or a Z.
You have to put your tongue in a different place. Exactly. And by watching yourself in the mirror, you can actually get that visual feedback and see, am I forming this sound correctly?
I've actually been trying this, and it's amazing like how much you can learn just by watching yourself.
You're almost like teaching your face new movements.
I love that analogy. Okay, so moving right along the podcast, then dives into something that can really take your English to the next level.
Idioms.
Yes.
This is where your English starts to sound less like textbook English and more like natural everyday conversation.
Yeah, because native speakers use idioms all the time.
All the time.
And the podcast actually introduces this cool idea of an idiom challenge.
I love that.
Which I think is a really fun way to look at it.
Yeah.
So essentially, they say, try to learn a few new idioms every single week.
Yeah, and then actively try to use them when you're speaking.
That active part is so important.
Yes. It's not enough to just memorize a list.
No, you have to actually use them.
Exactly. Weave them into your sentences.
Yeah, and they give some great examples in the podcast. Like the first one is hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And they give the example. When she explained the reason behind my confusion, she really hit the nail on the head.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, instead of just saying like she explained it perfectly.
It's so much more vivid.
It is. It's just like
Looks
more
impressive.
Yeah. And then the second idiom they give is a blessing in disguise.
Oh, that's a good one.
And the example is losing that job was actually a blessing in disguise. It pushed me to start my own business.
Yeah.
And that one really kind of helps you explain those situations where something bad happened.
Yeah, but it turned out to be good.
Exactly. And they really emphasize in the podcast that you have to use these idioms or you'll forget them.
Yeah, if you're not actively incorporating them into your speaking.
Yeah, so maybe just pick 1 or 2 new idioms each week.
That's manageable.
Yeah, and really try to weave them into your solo practice sessions.
And what's cool about using idioms effectively is that it shows that you have a deeper understanding of the English language and culture.
Oh, definitely.
Like you're not just translating words literally. You're actually grasping those more figurative and nuanced ways that native speakers express themselves.
Exactly. And then podcast moves on to talk about something that's so important in language learning, but it can also be like the hardest part.
Dealing with our mistakes.
Yes.
Making mistakes.
And they have this great section that they title Self-Correction Without Shame.
Yeah.
Which I think is such a good way to frame it because so often we get down on ourselves.
Yeah, we feel embarrassed.
Yeah, when we make mistakes.
But the podcast emphasizes that when you're recording yourself and you listen back and you hear those mistakes, it's not a bad thing. It's actually really valuable feedback.
Yeah, you're like, oh, wow, I actually do that a lot.
Yeah, and it's a sign that your ear is becoming more attuned to correct English.
Which is what we want.
Yeah, because you can't fix what you don't notice.
Exactly.
So when you hear yourself saying something awkward or maybe making a grammar mistake, that's actually progress.
That means you're noticing it.
Yeah,
And then they give this really practical tip, which is keep a notebook.
Yeah.
And every time you notice one of those mistakes, write it down.
Write it down.
But then here's the key.
What do you do?
Write down the corrected version.
Yeah.
And then say it out loud 5 times.
Drill it.
Yeah. It's like a drill, and it might feel kind of repetitive.
But it's so effective.
It is.
Like you're reprogramming your brain.
Yeah, to automatically choose the right phrasing.
Exactly.
Love it. Okay, and then the final technique they talk about is called loop practice.
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
It's super interesting. So loop practice is a very specific method for strengthening your sentence structure.
Okay.
And also expanding the variety of verbs that you use.
Okay, walk me through it.
Okay, so you start with a relatively simple sentence.
Okay.
Or a phrase.
Okay.
And then you're going to repeat that sentence maybe like 10 to 15 times.
Oh, wow.
But each time, you're going to change just one little element.
Okay, so it's like a loop.
It is a loop, exactly.
I get it.
And they give a really clear example in the podcast.
Okay.
They start with the sentence, I'm going to the market.
Okay.
And then they change the destination.
Okay.
So they say, I'm going to the bakery. I'm going to the library. I'm heading to the gym. I might go to the cafe. I will be visiting the museum.
Oh, that's so cool. So the sentence structure stays the same, but you're changing those key elements.
Exactly. And that way you're practicing using different verb forms,
Yeah.
going to, heading to, might go, will be visiting.
Yeah.
And then you're also expanding your vocabulary by changing that noun. So instead of just market, it's bakery, library, all of that.
Yeah, I love it. It's like you're creating variations on a theme.
Yeah.
But it's controlled.
Exactly.
So it helps you feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and I think it also subtly helps improve your intonation and the natural rhythm of your speech.
Yeah.
Because you're repeating these similar patterns, but with these slight variations.
So it sounds more natural. Awesome. And they encourage you to like come up with your own sentences.
Yeah. Related to your interests or your daily life.
Exactly. So it's relevant to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so to quickly recap, we've gone over a lot of really cool techniques today for practicing speaking English solo.
Yeah.
We talked about simulating real conversations with call and response, challenging yourself with those advanced prompts.
Building confidence.
Yes, building confidence with mirror work.
And sounding more natural with idioms.
Yes.
And embracing those mistakes.
Yes, self-correction without shame.
Yeah. And building up that sentence structure and verb variety with loop practice.
And all of these are active techniques. You're actually producing the language.
You're not just passively consuming it.
You're speaking.
You're speaking. And that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah. And so this brings us to like a question for you listening right now.
Yes. Of all these techniques that we talked about, which one resonates most with you?
Which one are you thinking, oh, I could really benefit from that?
Or maybe even which one do you think would be the most challenging for you?
Yeah, and maybe even more importantly, how can you experiment with maybe just one of these techniques, sync for a presentation or something like that?
Yeah.
Just standing there talking to yourself.
Or like, trying to like psych yourself up before like a job interview.
Right.
But it's so much more than that.
It is.
I remember when my friend John was learning English, he would like practice ordering coffee in his dorm room.
Oh my God.
And he would like say to like no one, can I get a grande latte with almond milk?
I love that.
And he would just feel so awkward. But, he was onto something.
He was onto something. And you know what? Even if it feels awkward, even if you feel silly doing it, what's really amazing is that your brain is still making those connections.
Yeah.
Right? Like between the thought that you want to express, finding the language for it, the English words for it, and then actually like physically saying it out loud.
It's like a mental rehearsal.
It is. It's like building that muscle memory.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we're talking about today. It's about how can we create that kind of muscle memory for speaking English, even when you don't have a partner to practice with.
It's like working out by yourself.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you can get in shape without a personal trainer.
Absolutely.
You can get in shape without going to the gym.
Totally. You just need to know the right exercises.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to give you today.
Exactly.
We are going to give you the exercises.
So let's get into some specific techniques.
Let's do it.
Okay. The first one is called shadowing. Have you heard of this?
Shadowing is so cool. I love shadowing.
It's one of my favorites.
So for anyone who hasn't heard of shadowing before, basically what you are doing is you are listening to a native English speaker and you are repeating what they say.
Yeah.
Almost like you're their shadow.
Almost like an echo.
Yeah, you're echoing them. Exactly.
But it's more than just like parroting back the words. It's about like paying attention to their intonation, the rise and fall of their voice,
the rhythm, the pronunciation.
Yeah, the pronunciation, everything.
Everything. So you are really trying to embody how they're speaking.
Yeah.
So practically speaking, how do you actually do this?
Yeah.
Well, first you want to find a short audio or video clip.
Yeah.
I would say something around 30 seconds to start.
Yeah.
You know, something that feels manageable.
Something bite-sized.
Totally.
Not overwhelming. So like a scene from a movie or a TV show.
Yeah.
Or like a little clip from a podcast or something like that.
Exactly. And then you're going to use that kind of classic play, pause, repeat method.
Yeah.
So you listen to a phrase.
Yeah.
You pause it. You try to repeat it exactly as you heard it.
Yeah.
And then you play the next phrase. You pause it. You repeat it.
Yeah.
And you just keep doing that until you start to get the hang of it.
And what's so cool about this is you can really tailor it to the type of English that you want to improve. So if you want to sound more professional, you could shadow like a TED Talk.
Yeah.
Or if you want to sound more casual,
yeah,
you could shadow like a dialogue from your favorite Netflix show.
Right. Or like an interview with a celebrity or something like that.
Totally.
You can really choose what you want to sound like.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful to record yourself.
Oh my God, this is so key.
While you're shadowing. Because
it's so cringe.
It can be so cringy, but it is so helpful.
It is so helpful.
Because you can really hear the difference between like how you think you sound.
Right.
And how you actually sound.
And how the native speaker sounds.
Yeah.
So you can kind of identify like, oh, okay, I need to work on my intonation a little bit more, or I'm not pronouncing this sound quite right.
Yeah.
So it gives you that kind of feedback.
Totally. Okay.
So we've got shadowing.
Shadowing.
What's our next technique?
Okay, our next technique is called scripted speaking.
Ooh, this is a fun one.
This one is fun because it lets you get a little creative. So basically with scripted speaking, you're going to write out a short dialogue or monologue.
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine a situation where you would need to use English.
Yeah.
So like ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions or checking into a hotel.
Yeah, like a real life scenario.
Yeah. And then you actually write out that dialogue.
Exactly, like a little script.
Like you were writing a play.
Yeah.
But just for yourself.
Just for you.
And then you practice saying it out loud.
Okay, so what are the benefits of this? Why would we do this?
First of all, I think it really helps with vocabulary because you can kind of pre-plan the words that you're going to use.
You're not having to come up with them on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. You're not under pressure to like improvise.
Right. Which can be really hard.
Yeah.
Especially when you are first starting to learn a language.
Totally.
So you can really think about, okay, what are the key words that I want to use here? How can I use them correctly?
Yeah.
How can I structure my sentences?
And I think it also helps build confidence.
Absolutely.
Because you're kind of like practicing in a safe environment.
Yeah.
Right? You're not actually in that high pressure situation.
Right. It's like that mental rehearsal again. You're getting yourself ready.
Exactly.
So when you are in that situation in real life, you feel more prepared.
Totally. And once you've got that script down, here's where the real fun begins.
Oh, tell me more.
You can start to get creative with it.
Yeah.
So you can start to think about, okay, how can I rewrite this script using more advanced vocabulary?
Yeah.
Using different grammatical structures.
Right. So maybe your first script was really simple. Like, I want a burger.
Yeah.
But then you can challenge yourself to be like, okay, how can I say that in a more interesting way? Like, I'd like to order the classic cheeseburger, please.
Yeah.
And could you make sure it's cooked medium rare with extra pickles?
Yeah, you are flexing those vocabulary muscles.
You are flexing.
You're getting fancy.
We are getting fancy with our burger order.
Okay, so we've got shadowing. We've got scripted speaking.
What's next?
Next is voice journaling.
Oh, I love this one.
This is a really good one.
Yeah, this is a good one.
And it's so simple.
Yeah.
All you need is your phone.
You got it in your pocket.
So basically every day, you are just going to record yourself speaking for 5 to 10 minutes.
Easy peasy.
And you can talk about anything.
Yeah.
You can talk about your day,
your plans,
your dreams,
your hopes,
your fear,
your favorite foods.
Exactly. Just whatever comes to mind.
Like you are talking to a friend.
Yeah, just chat away.
But you're just chatting to your phone?
To the void.
So why is this so beneficial?
Okay, well, first of all, it really helps with fluency.
Yeah.
Because you are pushing yourself to speak continuously.
Yeah.
You're not stopping and starting. You're not getting interrupted.
Yeah.
You're just letting the words flow.
Like a river.
Like a beautiful river of English.
And it also helps with your storytelling ability. Right, because you're having to organize your thoughts.
Yeah.
And put them into a coherent narrative.
You are the main character.
You are the star of the show.
And it's also good for pronunciation because you are hearing yourself speak.
Right, you're getting that feedback.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not pronouncing that word quite right.
Yeah. And then you can go back and listen to your old recordings.
This is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
Like, after a month or two of doing this,
Yeah.
go back and listen to your first few recordings.
I'm always amazed.
It's amazing the progress that you can hear. Like,
Yes.
you will be so surprised by how much you have improved.
Totally.
It's so motivating.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got voice journaling.
All right, what else we got?
Okay, our next technique is a little bit more unconventional.
Oh, I like unconventional.
This is talking to AI or voice assistants.
So this might sound a little bit strange,
Yeah.
but hear me out.
Yeah.
So, we've got all this amazing technology now,
Yeah.
like Chat GPT,
Google Assistant,
Siri, Alexa,
these things.
all these things.
And you can actually have conversations with them.
You can.
And it's great practice.
Yeah.
So you can ask them questions.
Yeah.
You can give them commands.
You can tell them jokes.
You can make small talk.
You can really just chat with them.
And it's a really low pressure environment to
Right.
practice your speaking.
Because you're not worried about making mistakes.
Yeah.
You're not worried about being judged.
Yeah. And I know it can feel a little silly, like talking to a computer.
I mean, who hasn't had a conversation with their computer at some point?
Right.
But you know what? It's actually really good practice.
Yeah.
Because it's training your brain to react quickly in English.
Yeah.
Which is what you need to do in a real conversation.
Yeah.
So, give it a try. You might be surprised by how much you enjoy it.
Okay. So our last technique for today is visualization and role play.
This one's fun.
This is a good one.
It's a good one to get you out of your head, to get you using your imagination.
So basically, you are going to choose a scenario where you might need to use English.
Yeah.
And then you are going to act it out.
In your head, in your room.
By yourself.
Yeah.
So this could be anything.
Right.
Like imagine you are at a job interview or you are giving a presentation.
Yeah.
Or you are traveling and you need to ask for directions.
Ordering food.
Ordering food.
Checking into a hotel.
Going through airport security.
These things.
So many possibilities.
And the key here is to really try to make it as real as possible.
Yeah.
So don't just say the words in your head. Like actually get up.
Move around.
Move around. Use your body language.
Use your facial expression.
No, really embody that character that you are pretending to be.
And have fun with it.
Yeah. And it can be so much fun.
It can.
Like one day you could be a tourist in Tokyo. The next day you could be a business person in London.
Right. You can travel the world.
All from your living room without leaving your house.
Okay. So we've talked about all these different techniques.
Yeah.
But let's be real. Sometimes it can be hard to stay motivated.
Totally.
To practice speaking alone.
You can feel weird.
Yeah.
It can feel awkward.
It can feel embarrassing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some common mistakes
Right.
that people make when they are practicing alone and how to avoid them.
Yeah, I think the first one is that feeling of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like you said, it can feel really weird to be talking to yourself in English.
Yeah. Especially if you live with other people. And
Yeah.
you're like, what are you doing?
Like, who are you talking to?
But I think it's important to remember that everyone feels this way at first.
Yeah.
It's totally normal.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
And the more you do it,
Yeah.
the less awkward it will feel.
It really does. It's like anything else. The more you practice, the more comfortable you become.
Totally.
So just try to push past that initial feeling of weirdness and remember that you are doing this for you.
Yeah.
You are investing in yourself.
It's your own personal English gem.
It is.
Okay, another common mistake is focusing too much on grammar.
Oh, yeah. This is a big one.
When you are practicing speaking,
Yeah.
it can be really tempting to
To want to get everything perfect.
Yeah, to want to get everything
Every
perfect.
single grammar rule.
Yeah, and to not make any mistakes.
But you know what? That can actually really hinder your progress.
Yeah.
Because it slows you down and it makes you feel less confident.
You are constantly stopping and starting.
Yeah, you're overthinking everything.
Yeah.
And you're not able to just let the words flow.
Yeah, so when you are practicing speaking,
Yeah.
focus on fluency.
Fluency over perfection.
Yeah, not perfection.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's okay to not get every grammar rule right.
Yeah.
The most important thing is to be able to communicate your ideas.
Yeah, and to keep talking.
Yeah.
To keep that flow going.
Right. And you can always go back and fix your grammar later.
Yeah.
But when you are speaking, you just want to let it go.
Totally.
Totally.
Okay, and one last mistake that we see a lot of people making
Yeah.
is relying too much on subtitles.
Oh, this is a good one.
when they are shadowing.
Right.
Now, subtitles can be a really helpful tool
Right.
for language learning in general.
Yeah.
But when you are shadowing, you really want to be focusing on listening to the sounds of the language and mimicking those sounds.
Yeah.
So if you're reading the subtitles, you are not really paying attention to the sound.
Right. You're not really training your ear.
Yeah.
And you're not really training your mouth.
Yeah. So try to resist the temptation to look at the subtitles.
Yeah.
And just really focus on listening and repeating.
Just listen and repeat.
Okay. So we've talked about all these techniques.
Yeah.
We've talked about some common mistakes. Now let's talk about how to actually create a solo speaking routine.
All right, let's get practical.
Because I think that's the biggest question people have.
How do we actually make this happen?
Yeah, how do we actually do this on a daily basis?
On a regular basis.
So I think the key here is to start small.
Yeah.
And to be consistent.
Absolutely.
So even if you can only spare 15 or 20 minutes a day, that's totally fine.
That's more than enough.
Yeah. It's better to practice a little bit every day.
Right.
Than to try to do like a marathon session once a week.
Totally. It's all about consistency.
Okay, so let's create a sample routine together.
All right, I like this.
Okay, let's say you have 30 minutes.
30 minutes a day.
30 minutes a day.
Not bad.
To dedicate to speaking practice.
All right, how are we going to break that down?
Okay, so I think we should start with a warm-up.
Right.
Like 5 minutes.
5 minutes to warm up those vocal cords.
Yeah, you could do some tongue twisters.
I love tongue twisters.
You could repeat some basic phrases.
Yeah, just get your mouth moving.
Just your mouth moving.
Get your brain in English mode.
Exactly.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, after your warm-up, let's do 10 minutes of shadowing.
Perfect.
Choose a short clip from something that you enjoy watching or listening to.
Yeah.
And just really focus on mimicking that speaker.
Embody them.
Okay, after shadowing.
Yeah.
Let's do 5 minutes of voice journaling.
All right, get that phone out.
Just chat to your phone about anything that's on your mind.
Just let those words flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do 5 minutes of role play.
Ooh, fun.
Choose a scenario and really act it out.
Get into character.
And then, for the last 5 minutes, you can review any recordings that you made.
That's a good idea.
So if you recorded yourself during your voice journaling, or if you recorded yourself role-playing, you can go back and listen to those recordings.
And you can take notes.
Yeah, and think about, okay, what did I do well? What do I need to work on?
Right, and that way you are kind of getting that feedback loop. So we've got a 30-minute routine.
We've got a routine.
What if someone has more time, though? What if they're like, I'm feeling ambitious. I want to do an hour.
You go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
You can extend each of those segments.
Totally.
You can add more role play scenarios. You can do more shadowing.
You can even try combining some of the techniques.
Yeah.
Like maybe you do some scripted speaking and then you record yourself performing it.
Yeah.
And then you listen back to the recording and you give yourself feedback.
Totally. The possibilities are endless.
They are.
But I think the most important thing is just to find something that works for you.
Yeah.
And to stick with it.
Absolutely. Make it a habit.
Make it a habit.
Make it part of your daily routine.
Okay. So before we wrap up,
I
want to give you all a little challenge.
I love a good challenge.
I want to challenge you to choose one of these techniques that we talked about today.
That's one.
And practice it every day for the next 7 days.
7 days.
And I promise you, you will see a difference.
You will feel a difference.
In your fluency.
Yeah.
In your confidence.
In your overall English speaking abilities.
And I think it's really encouraging to hear stories from other learners.
Totally.
Who've had success with these techniques.
Yeah.
So we recently heard from a listener named Priya from India.
Love Priya.
And she practiced speaking alone for 3 months.
Wow.
Using some of these techniques.
Dedication.
And she was able to ace a job interview.
That's amazing.
In English.
Good for her.
It was her dream job.
I love that.
So it just goes to show
it works.
That it really does work.
It does.
And it's so empowering.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to wait for someone else to practice with you.
You are in control.
You can take control of your own learning.
You are the captain of your own English ship. The key difference here is that you're not just aiming for accurate pronunciation of the words. The real magic comes from actively trying to copy the speaker's intonation, the melody of their voice, the emotion they're expressing, and just the natural rhythm of how they speak.
I see what you mean. It's not just about saying the words right. It's almost like performing them. You know, imagine you're watching a really interesting interview or a dynamic presentation. Pause after a sentence or two and try to really feel how that person delivered those words.
Yes. You're stepping into their vocal shoes for a moment, becoming that speaker.
That's a great way to put it.
It's kind of like developing a physical habit. Repetition is key, but it's more than just the mechanics of moving your mouth. You need to ingrain that feeling, the flow of the language. You're training your mouth, brain, and ears to work together intuitively.
Okay, so here's a tip that really helped me with this. Try recording yourself. It might feel a little strange at first, but
You know, a lot of learners wonder if recording themselves is actually helpful, but honestly, it offers some incredibly valuable feedback.
for sure.
When you listen back objectively, you might be surprised by what you notice. You'll hear where you've effectively captured the speaker's nuances, and you'll also be able to pinpoint areas where you can adjust or improve.
It's like having another set of ears, almost. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something else that's so crucial, expanding your vocabulary. But we're not talking about passively memorizing tons of words. We're talking about building an active vocabulary, the words and phrases you can confidently use when you're actually speaking.
Right, right. And the biggest challenge here is moving from simply recognizing a word when you see or hear it to being able to produce it spontaneously in your own speech. One really practical approach is to select just 2 or 3 new words or phrases every day and make a conscious effort to learn them.
That feels a lot more manageable, right? It's not overwhelming at all. But then how you engage with those words is really important. It's not just about reading the definition.
Exactly. You have to actively use these new words or phrases. Try making original sentences with them, different types of sentences. And most importantly, say them out loud.
Out loud, that's key. For instance, let's take a common phrase like cut to the chase. Just understanding what it means isn't enough. You need to actually practice using it in different ways.
For sure.
So you might say to yourself, all right, let me cut to the chase. Or imagine you're describing someone. She always cuts to the chase in meetings. Or you could even use it as a question. Can we please cut to the chase? You see, the core meaning stays the same, but how you use it changes a little depending on the situation.
Precisely. And if you think about it, your active vocabulary is like your essential toolkit for speaking. You wouldn't just collect a bunch of tools, you would actually practice using each one so you know exactly how and when to apply it effectively. Recognizing a word is like knowing you have a screwdriver, but actively using it is knowing how and when to use it to tighten a screw.
I love that analogy.
It's about putting those words to work, making them your own.
Okay, so now let's tackle a strategy that, to be honest, might feel a bit challenging at first, but is incredibly powerful. Thinking in English.
Yeah, it can be a big step, especially if your native language structures thought very differently. But like with anything, consistency is key, and starting small makes it much more achievable.
Absolutely. A great way to start is just by narrating your day to yourself internally in English. Don't even worry about perfect grammar at this stage. The goal is just to get those thoughts flowing in English.
Right. And what's amazing is how this seemingly simple habit can have a huge impact over time. Like imagine something as basic as brushing your teeth. Instead of thinking about it in your native language and maybe translating, try this. Okay, now I'm brushing my teeth. The water's cold. Oh, this toothbrush is getting old. Maybe I need a new one soon.
I can just picture myself doing that. It would feel a little strange at first.
It might feel like you're having a silent conversation with yourself.
Which you are, in a way. But this is really about getting your brain to create direct pathways for English communication. You start to skip that mental translation step, which can really slow you down when you're speaking.
Exactly. And here's another important point. What happens when you come across a word you don't know while you're thinking in English? That's actually a really crucial moment for developing fluency. Instead of immediately switching back to your native language to find the translation, try to describe that unknown word using the English vocabulary you already have.
It's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
It is. This ability to work around gaps in your knowledge is something fluent speakers do naturally.
I see. So it's almost like a problem-solving skill in itself.
Exactly. Okay, so let's revisit a technique we've discussed before because it's such a useful tool for solo practice. Talking to your mirror.
Oh, yes, the mirror technique. I have to admit, this one still feels a little funny to me sometimes, but I know how valuable it can be.
Yeah, it might feel strange initially, but try to see it as a judgment-free zone, just for you. It's your personal rehearsal space, a completely safe environment to practice without any external pressure. You can really focus on your confidence, your pronunciation, and even observe your facial expressions as you speak.
It's like your own private stage, right?
Exactly. And what's cool about this technique is that it lets you integrate several of the strategies we've already talked about. So try this. Tell yourself a short story, maybe something that happened to you today, or even a vivid memory from your childhood.
I like that idea. And as you're telling that story, consciously try to weave in those new vocabulary words and phrases you've been practicing.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to really use your expressions and gestures, just as you would in a real conversation.
Haha, I can picture it now. The first time I tried this, I felt a bit silly, I have to admit. But I actually started noticing some habits I had when I spoke.
Yeah.
I realized I fidget a lot when I'm trying to remember a word.
It's all about self-awareness, right? And another big benefit here is that you build up what we call speaking endurance. You get more and more comfortable with the sound of your own voice speaking English. That growing comfort and familiarity can really boost your confidence.
Okay, so for our final solo strategy today, let's talk about how to become your own best critic through self-feedback. Your phone can be an incredibly useful tool for this.
Oh, for sure. A lot of learners ask us how their phone can actually help them improve their speaking.
Yeah, it's not always obvious.
Right. Well, the key is that your phone can objectively record your speech. So record yourself speaking, maybe reading a news article out loud, or giving a short, unprepared talk on a topic you're familiar with.
Great idea. And then, once you have that recording, the really important part is to listen back critically, almost as if you were evaluating someone else. Pay close attention to a few key things.
This is where the real insights come in. First, focus on your clarity. Ask yourself, how easy is it to understand what I'm saying? Then, notice any hesitations or pauses that might disrupt the natural flow of your speech. Next, pay attention to your pronunciation of individual sounds and words. And finally, listen for those little filler words we all use sometimes. And.
It's amazing how much we miss when we're just focused on speaking. So take notes on what you hear and be as specific as possible. Instead of just writing something general like pronunciation issue, write down the actual word you struggled with.
Yes, specific feedback is so important.
Then using those notes, record yourself speaking the same material again. You'll probably hear a noticeable improvement. This cycle of recording, reflecting, and re-recording is super effective for tracking your progress over time.
And you know what? Even experienced speakers do this. I still use this technique when I'm preparing for important presentations or talks.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hearing yourself speak allows you to catch those subtle, awkward pauses or rushed words that you might not be aware of in the moment. It really helps you sound much more natural and polished.
So, before we wrap up, let's quickly recap the 5 powerful solo speaking habits we've covered today to help you on your path to fluency.
Definitely.
Number 1, imitation with feeling, really embodying the way native speakers deliver their words.
Yes, focusing on the music of the language.
Number 2, active vocabulary practice, not just recognizing words, but actively using them in different contexts out loud.
Making those words your own.
Number 3, thinking in English, shifting that internal dialogue to English as much as you can throughout your day.
Rewiring your brain, so to speak.
Number 4, speaking to your mirror as your personal rehearsal space, where you can experiment and build confidence without any judgment.
Your own private stage to shine.
And finally, number 5, self-recording and feedback. Using your phone to objectively evaluate your speech and track your progress.
Becoming your own coach.
I love how each of these habits builds a different but essential aspect of fluency, that ability to speak English confidently and naturally, even when you're practicing solo.
And remember, what we talked about at the beginning, the power here is that you're in control. You set the pace, you decide what to focus on, you become your own guide on this language learning journey.
Exactly. Now, looking ahead to our next deep dive, we're going to delve into some even more advanced solo practice techniques. We'll be talking about spontaneous speech training, effective strategies for structuring your storytelling, and even techniques for mimicking the natural flow and rhythm of native speakers in real time.
Oh yeah, that's going to...
Precisely imagine you're having a conversation, and you're constantly having to translate everything in your head before you can respond.
You'd be so far behind.
It would be exhausting, and your speech would sound really hesitant and unnatural.
It would be like trying to drive with the parking brake on.
Haha. Exactly. A good analogy. So thinking in English is about releasing that brake and allowing your thoughts to flow more freely.
And the amazing thing is that the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's like training your brain to think in a whole new way.
It really is. And to kind of illustrate that transition, think of it like this.
Okay, I'm listening.
Imagine someone who's had a leg injury and they've been using crutches to get around.
Right, I can picture that.
In the beginning, when they first start trying to walk without the crutches, it's going to feel awkward and a bit unsteady, right?
Yes, for sure.
But with practice, those steps become more confident, and eventually walking independently becomes the most natural and efficient way to move.
It becomes second nature.
Exactly. And it's the same with thinking in English. At first, it might feel a little bit strange or challenging, but the more you do it, the more natural it will become, and your spoken English will start to flow more effortlessly.
So for our listeners who are ready to give this a try, what are some practical steps they can take to start thinking in English more regularly?
Well, I'd say start small and focus on incorporating it into your daily routine.
Okay, I like that.
Think about the everyday things you do and try to narrate those activities in your head in English.
So like, for example, when you're getting ready in the morning.
Exactly. You could think to yourself, I'm brushing my teeth, or I'm getting dressed for work.
Or even simpler things like I'm making coffee or I'm opening the window.
Yes. Any little thing you do throughout the day, try to put it into simple English sentences in your mind.
And over time, those little mental exercises will start to add up and make a big difference in how naturally you think and speak in English.
Absolutely. And another great way to really solidify this skill is through something we like to call the voice note journal method.
The voice note journal method. This sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Well, it's basically a modern twist on the traditional journal.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Instead of writing down your thoughts, you record them using the voice memo app on your phone.
So you're essentially speaking your journal entries.
Exactly, and it's such a fantastic way to practice speaking English in a relaxed and low-pressure environment.
No one's listening except you.
Exactly, and you can really let your thoughts flow freely without worrying about making mistakes.
So what kind of things would you recommend talking about in these voice note journal entries?
Anything really you can reflect on your day, talk about your goals, share your opinions on something you've read or watched.
It's like having a conversation with yourself, but in English.
Exactly, and the key is to just be yourself and speak as naturally as possible.
Don't overthink it, just let the words come out.
And how often would you suggest doing these voice note journal entries?
Aim for consistency. I'd say even just 5 to 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference.
Agreed. And here's where it gets really interesting. Set aside some time each week to listen back to those recordings.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's like getting personalized feedback on your progress.
You can really hear how your pronunciation, intonation, and fluency are developing over time.
Exactly, and don't be afraid to cringe a little when you hear your own voice.
Haha. Oh, I think we've all been there.
It's totally normal.
Wow.
But try to focus on the positive changes you're hearing and use those recordings as motivation to keep practicing.
I love this technique. It's so simple, yet so effective.
It really is. And it's a great way to track your progress and stay motivated on your English-speaking journey.
Now, speaking of progress, let's talk about another technique that can really help you refine your pronunciation and develop a more natural feel for the rhythm of spoken English.
Yes, and we've touched on this before, but we're going to take it to the next level with something we call shadowing with attitude.
Shadowing with attitude. I like the sound of that. So what's the attitude all about?
Well, basic shadowing is great. Listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say.
It's a classic technique for a reason.
But with shadowing with attitude, we're not just focusing on mimicking the words. We're trying to embody the speaker's entire delivery.
So it's about more than just pronunciation.
Exactly. It's about capturing the nuances of their intonation, the emotion in their voice, the rhythm and flow of their speech.
It's about becoming a vocal chameleon.
Exactly. And the best way to do this is to choose audio or video clips of native speakers that you really enjoy listening to.
So it could be a favorite podcast, a scene from a movie, a TED Talk, anything that really grabs your attention.
And then you want to really immerse yourself in how those speakers are delivering their message. Pay attention to the subtle ways they use their voice to convey meaning and emotion.
It's like becoming an actor for a moment. You're stepping into their shoes and trying to deliver those lines with the same feeling and conviction.
And this might sound a little strange, but try to physically mimic their facial expressions and body language as well.
Ah, I see. So it's about engaging your whole body, not just your voice.
The more you embody the speaker, the more you'll start to internalize those subtle nuances of spoken English.
And this active mimicry helps build what you called vocal muscle memory earlier.
Yes, it's all about training those muscles involved in speech production. Your tongue, your lips, your vocal cords, to work together in a way that feels natural and effortless when speaking English.
And over time, this will lead to more natural and fluent pronunciation without even having to think about it.
Precisely. It's like anything else, the more you practice, the more ingrained those movements and sounds become.
So now that we've talked about pronunciation, let's move on to another crucial aspect of sounding more natural and fluent, and that is mastering the art of idioms and real-world phrases.
Yes, these are the expressions that native speakers use all the time, and they can really add color and personality to your English.
And they're essential for understanding everyday conversations, movies, TV shows, all of it.
Exactly. And using idioms correctly shows that you have a deeper understanding of the language and can connect with native speakers on a more nuanced level.
It's not about trying to sound fancy or using big words. It's about using language in a way that feels authentic and natural.
And to get you started, let's explore a few common idioms that you can start incorporating into your speaking practice.
Oh, okay.
I'm ready. So first up, we have hit the nail on the head.
Ah, yes, a classic.
And this simply means to be exactly right about something.
For example, you could say you hit the nail on the head with that analysis.
Perfect. Next, we have out of the blue.
Which means something unexpected or sudden.
Yes, like he showed up at my door out of the blue.
Okay, I'm getting the hang of this. What else you got?
All right, how about a blessing in disguise?
I've heard that one, but what does it actually mean?
It refers to something that seems bad at first, but turns out to be good in the end.
Oh, I see. So, like, losing my job was a blessing in disguise because it led me to my dream career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to add a couple more to your repertoire, we have think outside the box.
Which encourages creativity and unconventional thinking.
And finally, on the same page.
Meaning everyone is in agreement or understanding.
Precisely. So there you have 5 common idioms to get you started. And remember, the key is to actively use them in your speaking practice.
Don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah.
Have fun with it and see how they can make your English sound more natural and expressive.
Absolutely. And speaking of practice, let's wrap things up with one final technique that's all about pushing your fluency to the next level. And that's the 30-second challenge.
The 30-second challenge? This sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
Okay, so here's how it works. You choose a random topic.
Any topic.
It could be anything. Your favorite food, your dream vacation, a recent news story, just something that comes to mind.
Okay, and then?
And then you set a timer for 30 seconds.
Okay.
And your challenge is to speak about that topic continuously for the full 30 seconds without pausing or using filler words like or like.
Wow, that sounds like a real test of fluency.
It is. And it might feel a little awkward or challenging at first, but the goal is to focus on maintaining a steady flow of speech.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about keeping the words coming.
Exactly. And you'll be surprised how much you can actually say in 30 seconds once you get going.
And this exercise is great for identifying any gaps in your vocabulary, right?
Absolutely. You'll quickly realize which words or phrases you're missing when trying to talk about a specific topic, and then you can focus on learning those.
It's like a self-assessment tool built into the practice.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the more confident and fluent you'll become in speaking off the cuff.
This is a fantastic technique. I can't wait to try it out myself.
Me too. So to sum up all these amazing techniques we've covered today, we've talked about the importance of thinking in English.
Right. Rewiring our brains.
We explored the power of shadowing with attitude to really embody the nuances of spoken English.
Becoming vocal actors.
We discussed the voice note journal method for relaxed and personalized practice.
Speeparazes.
And we tackled the 30-second challenge to boost fluency and identify vocabulary gaps.
Pushing our limits.
And all of these techniques are designed to help you build genuine confidence and achieve a level of fluency that feels natural, sustainable, and truly integrated into your everyday life.
It's about making English a natural part of who you are.
Exactly. And we're so excited to continue this journey with you in our next deep dive.
Absolutely. What's coming up next?
Well, next time we're going even deeper into the realm of practical application and self-directed learning.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We'll be exploring techniques for simulating conversations when you don't have a speaking partner readily available.
So valuable for independent learners.
We'll delve into role-playing methods to boost confidence in different communication scenarios.
Getting comfortable with real-world situations.
And perhaps most importantly, we'll uncover the secrets of self-correction, becoming your own English language coach.
That's the ultimate goal, isn't it? To be able to guide your own, right?
Yeah, there's no pressure, like no one's actually judging you.
Exactly. And you can experiment with different scenarios.
They called it controlled chaos, which I thought was a brilliant way to describe it.
Yeah, because you're in control, you decide the situation, the difficulty level, everything.
They gave some really cool examples too, like pretending to be a barista taking a coffee order.
Or like a lost tourist asking for directions, or even like a job applicant in a really intense interview.
I love that because it's so adaptable.
Yeah, exactly. You can tailor it to your specific needs or
Like
goals.
if you're planning a trip, you can practice travel conversations.
Exactly. Or if you're looking for a new job, you can focus on interview skills.
They had this really great tip for making role-playing even more effective, too.
What was that?
Sarah suggested actually writing out your dialogue beforehand.
Oh, that's smart. So you're not just making things up on the spot.
Yeah, you have a plan.
Yeah.
You know what you want to say.
And then you practice speaking it out loud, and even better, record yourself and listen back.
It's almost like having your own personal language coach.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So you can hear where you need to improve your pronunciation, your intonation.
Totally. Okay, so moving on, another big thing they talked about was the power of repetition.
Yeah, but they had a kind of interesting twist on it. They said practice makes permanent, not practice makes perfect.
Which I thought was so interesting
Yeah.
because it takes the pressure off a little bit, right?
Yeah, practice makes perfect can feel really intimidating.
Like you'll never reach that level.
Exactly. But practice makes permanent is more about building those habits, those automatic pathways in your brain.
So it becomes second nature.
Right. And John shared this really cool technique he used. He would take a single sentence and repeat it 10 times.
10 times.
Yeah. But here's the key. He would say it with different emotions, like angry, excited, tired.
Oh, wow. I never thought of that.
It's about internalizing the sentence on a deeper level, connecting it to real feelings.
So it's not just robotic repetition.
Exactly. It's about making the language come alive.
And they even gave us a specific sentence to try this with. It's a good one. I could have sworn I left my keys here.
Oh, yeah. I use that one all the time.
It's tricky, too, with that contraction, could.
Yeah, that's a good one to practice getting that natural sound.
Okay, so we've got role-playing, we've got repetition. What else did they have up their sleeve?
Well, they also talked about using technology to your advantage.
Oh, yeah, the talk to your text section.
Which I thought was super creative because it's all about making English a part of your daily life.
Yeah, like they suggested switching your phone's assistant to English.
So even something as simple as setting a timer becomes a little language practice.
Or checking the weather.
And it helps you get used to hearing your own voice speaking English.
Which can be scary for a lot of learners.
But there's no judgment from Siri or Alexa, right?
Totally. And they had an even more unusual suggestion. They talked about narrating your actions out loud to your phone.
Oh, yeah, like, hey, Siri, I'm walking to the kitchen to grab a snack.
Exactly. Which might sound a little strange at first.
But it's actually brilliant because you're basically thinking aloud in English.
And that's a huge step towards fluency.
Because it's about bridging that gap between thinking in your native language and thinking directly in English.
Now, beyond those broader techniques, they also stress the importance of figuring out your weak spots.
Right. It's not enough to just practice in general.
You have to identify those specific areas where you struggle.
And then target them directly.
They called it targeted shadowing.
Which is basically focusing on one specific weakness for a week.
Like if you have trouble with past tense verbs, you could record yourself telling a story using only the past tense.
And then listen to native speakers using past tense in different contexts and try to imitate them.
That's shadowing. And the idea is that by focusing your efforts, you'll see much faster improvement.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Now, we've talked a lot about the technical side of things, but they also touched on something a bit deeper.
Yeah, finding your voice in English.
And that's about so much more than just grammar and vocabulary.
It's about expressing yourself authentically, letting your personality shine through.
They made a really good point that a lot of learners are so afraid of making mistakes that they end up sounding really stiff and formal.
Yeah, they stick to these perfect textbook sentences.
But that's not real fluency.
No real fluency is about being comfortable enough to experiment, to take risks.
To find your own rhythm, your own way of speaking.
Even if it's not always grammatically perfect.
And John said that mimicking comedians actually helped him a lot with his timing and delivery.
Oh, that's a great idea, because comedians are masters of language.
They know how to use words for impact.
And Sarah suggested retelling jokes or short anecdotes as a way to kind of own the language.
To make it your own.
Not just reciting something you've memorized.
This deep dive has been so insightful, honestly. So many great takeaways.
Yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot too.
And now it's time for the challenge.
To put all this knowledge into action.
So here's what we want you to do. Think about one of your daily routines, something simple like making coffee or getting ready for work.
And try narrating it out loud in English.
But don't just list the steps. Put some feeling into it.
Yeah, like really, imagine you're explaining it to someone.
And then record yourself.
And listen back with a critical ear. Like your own language coach.
And if you're feeling brave, you could even send the recording to a friend for feedback.
or to a language partner.
And this is just the beginning. This deep dive into self-study techniques is part of a larger series.
Yeah, in our next deep dive, we're going to tackle a really big one, thinking in English.
Yes, was this recurring theme of feeling slowed down by constant mental translation.
Yeah, why?
Like your brain is acting as this middleman, which of course takes time and energy.
Makes sense.
One of the articles you highlighted even used the analogy of like a relay race where the baton keeps getting dropped.
Mm-hmm.
The message gets through eventually, but it's not fluid or efficient.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
It really speaks to why thinking directly in English is so important.
Yeah.
Because it cuts out that middle step.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not constantly translating, your response time in conversations naturally speeds up.
Absolutely.
It allows you to engage more spontaneously and confidently.
And one of your notes actually touched on this idea of feeling like you're performing English rather than just speaking it.
Oh, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, and this constant translation can really contribute to that feeling.
Mm.
When you think directly in English, you're accessing a more natural flow of language. You know, the kind native speakers experience.
Right.
It's less about consciously constructing sentences and more about expressing your thoughts as they arise in English.
That makes sense.
And this also reduces a lot of the anxiety associated with speaking, as you're not constantly second-guessing your word choices or grammatical structures because you're thinking within the English framework itself.
So, we've talked about the why. Now let's get into the how.
Exactly.
Based on what you've read in these sources, what are some of the initial steps you can take to begin this shift from translation to really immersing yourself mentally in English?
Well, several practical strategies emerged from your materials.
Okay.
One that was consistently mentioned and seems like a great starting point is the technique of labeling.
Labeling?
Yeah, throughout your day, make a conscious effort to identify objects around you and mentally name them in English.
Okay.
You see a cup. You think cup.
Read it, yeah.
Your keys are on the table. The sky is blue.
Simple enough.
It sounds incredibly simple, but it begins to build a direct connection between the object and the English word, bypassing your native language.
It's almost like retraining your brain's vocabulary list to go straight to the English term.
Exactly.
And it's something you can do anywhere, anytime, without needing any specific tools or practice partners.
Absolutely. And building on that, another key strategy highlighted in your notes involves expanding from single words to short, common phrases related to your daily life.
Okay, I like that.
Instead of just labeling door, start thinking, I need to close the door. When you feel a bit tired, the thought becomes, I'm feeling a little tired. If you're about to start studying, think, I'm going to study now.
Right.
These are small, practical ways to weave English into the fabric of your everyday thoughts.
It's about creating those mental pathways for frequently used phrases so they become automatic, just like they are in your native language.
Exactly.
One of the articles you shared talked about this as building linguistic chunks in your mind.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
And a more internal exercise that was discussed in several of your sources is the practice of narrating your thoughts in English.
Oh, interesting.
This might feel a bit strange initially, like you're talking to yourself silently in a new language.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's a powerful way to make English your default mode of thinking.
Okay.
For example, if you're thinking, I need to buy groceries later.
Yeah.
Consciously formulate that thought in English, I need to buy groceries later.
You even included a note where you mentioned trying to translate specific thoughts you have in your native language into English throughout the day. It sounds like a very active and conscious effort.
Exactly. And that initial feeling of awkwardness or slowness is actually a sign that you're challenging your brain and creating new neural connections.
I see.
It's like exercising a new muscle. It might feel a bit strained at first, but with consistent practice, it gets stronger.
Now, one of the more intriguing ideas that came up in your research was this concept of training your inner voice to become an English coach.
Oh, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that based on what you've read?
Several sources suggested consciously shifting your internal monologue, that voice in your head that's constantly commenting and processing information, to speak in English.
Makes sense.
Some learners even find it helpful to imagine this voice with an English accent as a sort of playful way to fully embody the language.
That's a fun approach. It's
Yeah.
like you're giving your inner critic a new linguistic persona.
Right.
So instead of reacting to a mistake with a thought in your native language, you'd consciously think something like, oh, I should have said that differently in English.
Precisely. It's about training yourself to have those immediate internal reactions and reflections in English.
Got it.
If you're feeling happy about something, your inner voice might say, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
If you're frustrated, it could be, this is so annoying.
Uh-huh.
By consistently doing this, you're essentially making English your brain's default language for processing emotions and reactions, not just neutral observations.
Right.
Over time, this really helps to solidify that shift in thinking.
Okay, so we have these mental strategies for shifting our internal landscape to English.
Mm-hmm.
Now, looking at your notes and the articles, what are some simple practical exercises you can incorporate into your daily routine to actively practice thinking in English?
One exercise that was highlighted in a few of your sources is something called photo describe.
Okay.
Throughout the day, take moments to look at photos on your phone or in albums and mentally describe what you see in English.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as simple as, this is a picture of my dog playing in the park, or more detailed, like, this was taken during my vacation last year. The weather was beautiful and we were visiting a historic site.
I see.
This helps you practice forming sentences and recalling vocabulary in a low-pressure setting.
That's a great way to connect visual cues directly with English descriptions.
Yeah.
It's almost like building your own personalized English dictionary based on your life experiences.
Another very accessible technique that came up repeatedly in your materials is the idea of a 5-minute English journal.
Okay. A journal.
Every morning or at any other point in the day, dedicate just 5 minutes to writing down your thoughts in English.
Got it.
Don't worry about perfect grammar or complex sentence structures.
I see, just free writing.
Exactly. The goal is simply to get your thoughts onto paper or a screen in English.
Uh-huh.
You might write about how you're feeling, what your plans are for the day, or just random thoughts that come to mind.
It's like a mental download in English.
Right.
Focusing on the act of thinking and expressing yourself in the language without the pressure of speaking to someone.
Exactly. And building on this idea of immediate responses, another crucial practice discussed is actively reacting in English to everyday occurrences.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Train yourself to have those first instinctive reactions to things that happen around you in English rather than your native language. If you hear a loud noise instead of your native language equivalent of surprise, try thinking or even saying, whoa.
Okay.
If you drop something, consciously say, oops, in English. These small automatic reactions are vital for building real-time fluency.
It's about making English your default emotional and reactive language, not just your transactional language.
Exactly.
I like it.
And finally, another powerful technique mentioned in your sources is active watching.
Active watching.
When you're watching English language videos or movies, try to do so without subtitles as much as possible.
Oh, that's tough.
And to make it an active thinking exercise, try to verbally react to what you're seeing, even if you're just speaking quietly to yourself.
Okay.
You might think, that's interesting, or I don't agree with that, or even just, what's going to happen next?
Right.
This forces you to process the language in real time and engage with the content in English.
So it's transforming passive viewing into an active mental workout in English.
Precisely. These are all relatively simple exercises that when practiced consistently can significantly contribute to your ability to think in English.
Okay, so now for a practical challenge, directly inspired by some of the exercises you were exploring in your notes.
Okay, sounds good.
We want to encourage you to actively put these ideas into practice.
For your challenge today, we want you to dedicate just 15 minutes to consciously trying to think exclusively in English.
15 minutes.
Set a timer for 15 minutes, and during that time, make a real effort to keep your internal monologue running in English.
Just English only.
Try to avoid switching back to your native language, even for a moment in your thoughts.
It's a focused burst of mental immersion.
Exactly.
Now, what should you do if you encounter a word you don't know how to say in English during that 15 minutes?
Oh, good question.
We know that can be a common stumbling block.
That's a great question. Instead of getting frustrated or switching back to your native language, try to describe the word in English using other words you already know.
Oh.
For example, if you're thinking about a thermometer but can't recall the English word, you could say to yourself, it's the thing we use to measure how hot or cold something is, or the instrument that tells you the temperature.
That's a really helpful strategy for working around those vocabulary gaps and maintaining that English thought flow.
And after your 15 minutes are up, take a quick note of any words you had to describe or couldn't think of in English.
Okay.
You can then look them up later. Think of this as a way to identify specific areas for your vocabulary growth. This challenge is really about jump-starting that mental habit of staying within the English language, even when it presents a little bit of a hurdle.
So the key takeaway from all the materials you've explored is that Making that shift to thinking in English isn't just a small improvement to your language skills.
Yeah,
It's a fundamental change in how you process and engage with the language.
absolutely.
And it's absolutely crucial for reaching true fluency.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond the mechanics of grammar and vocabulary and truly immersing yourself in the English language at a cognitive level.
We really encourage you to embrace this 15-minute challenge, even if it feels a little awkward or difficult at first.
Yeah.
Remember, those initial challenges are simply part of the learning process.
Mm.
Every minute you spend consciously directing your thoughts in English is a significant step forward on your fluency journey.
And on that note, consider this by consciously guiding your inner monologue in English. How might that not only enhance your language abilities, but also potentially shift your overall perspective and interaction with the English-speaking world? Could this internal linguistic shift open up new avenues of understanding and connection that you haven't yet considered?
That's a fascinating thought to explore.
It really is.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you then.